All right, I'm Bill Samler. I'm the warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service office in Wakefield. I did the survey this morning for the damage here in Virginia Beach. It looks like we actually may have had 3 separate events. The area down along Mediterranean near Pinewood Court, where the church steeple was blown off, that looks to be straight line wind damage. From the area behind me, where the roof was blown off the house, all the way across over to the oceanfront northeastward, that looks to be a weak tornado, EF0 in nature. And really the defining piece of information that allowed me to depict it as a tornado was if you look at a couple of the buildings where some of the insulation is strewn, it's kind of on the back side of the buildings where you wouldn't expect it if it were a straight line wind. The third area of damage is up north of here off Alaskan, close to Princess Anne Country Club. That also looks to be straight line wind damage. Lots of trees down, power lines down, a couple of trees on homes and cars. And so that's the basic idea of what we found here damage-wise, and I'll take any questions.
Anita Blanton with Waving. We're live on Midday right now. And what can you tell people about what you did to try to assess it? What are some of the specific things that help to say what you determined?
Well, in a straight line wind situation, in almost every instance, the damage is blown in one direction. And you could see that down on Mediterranean near Pinewood, where the church steeple was blown off. Everything was blown from southeast to northwest. And the same is true up on Alaskan, where everything's kind of blown in a northeast to southwest or an east to west direction. Here, everything looked similar to that, but the subtle clue was how the insulation was blown across and onto some of the buildings. And that can times, in a weak tornado, be the only clue that you have that it was tornado versus straight line wind.
So when you say here, you mean right in this area, 16th Street area?
That's exactly right. Yeah, from the building behind me, the house that lost its roof, across the school, and then over to the hotel complex that was damaged out into the ocean, that looks to be a weak tornado.
And can you just talk about the different tornadoes, straight line winds? It all causes the same types of damage, right?
They do in many respects cause the same type of damage. In the end, it's all wind, but the difference is there's ways to be able to see rotation in tornado damage that you would not see in straight line wind damage.
Estimate on how fast the winds got up to, what kind of...
Yeah, probably no more than 70 or 75 miles an hour here. I think what happened was the initial wind force that struck the house back behind me caught the roof in just the right way to tear it off, and then the other piece fell with it.
What do you all do with this data?
The data actually goes into a monthly summary that we produce that really represents the climatological record for things like tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, even winter storms and hurricanes.
What does it help you all with?
Well, it helps us in 2 ways. First of all, it provides that climatological record so anybody that's going back can actually look at what happened, and that has a variety of different purposes. But the other way it helps us is by looking at our warnings versus what actually happened. We're required by Congress as a performance-based organization to verify our warnings. And so that's the other piece of the puzzle that makes it critical for us to be able to determine whether it was or was not a tornado. In some cases it's really simple, there's no doubt, and in other cases it's not so easy.
Did you guys issue a tornado warning or any besides a severe thunderstorm warning?
No, we issued several severe thunderstorm warnings. In fact, the cell that initiated some of the damage here actually originated back in Greensville County, did the damage across Greensville there was a very weak circulation for a very that radar-based circulation did not last long enough for us to be able to go ahead and issue a tornado warning. not surprising for it to happen anywhere. There was one cue in the radar data that we looked at that suggested, well, we might have to pay a little closer attention, and we did, and that is when we have merging storms, which we did yesterday, close to the bay or the ocean, we have had situations where we have had weak spin-up tornadoes occur, and again, that was a situation yesterday, but that doesn't happen all the time.
How long has it been since you've seen a situation like this, or like you just described?
Well, this is probably closer to some of the events in terms of intensity that we see with tropical situations, although this was more like a springtime or summertime thunderstorm setup.
How long has it been since there's been a tornado, though, say, in Virginia Beach? Or...
Well, I can't say for sure that there hasn't been one between Irene and yesterday, but there was a tornado down in the Sandbridge area associated with Irene back in 2011.
It appears that this appears to me that the storms are becoming more stronger and stronger. Is there any indication that these storms are getting stronger every year? Or?
No, long term, there's really no indication that anything is happening intensity-wise. I think there are a couple of factors. One is we're doing a better job of being able to detect severe thunderstorms on radar. We're doing a better job of being able to analyze what's tornado damage versus straight line wind damage. If we were to go back 30 years, you'd be able to find storms that were in the record as being straight line wind damage, but were actually tornadoes. And the third thing is, there are people in more areas now than there were 30 years ago. So people are actually experiencing these events, and they may not have. They may have been in forested areas and fields, et cetera, 25, 30 years ago.
How do you determine where to start your assessment, and where do you go from here?
That's a great question. Where do we start? Where do we end the assessment? Some of that is radar-based. Some of it's based upon the reports that we get from our emergency managers, from 911 centers. Some of it's a guessing game. If we're in a rural area, we'll actually try and go back to the edge of the radar-based circulation and try and work either forward or backward, depending upon where we start. So in this case, we didn't really have a difficult time figuring out where it started and where it ended. So, you know, this was an easy one, but there are situations where it's a lot more difficult.
What do you have left to do?
We're pretty much done from here. I've done all the work. What I have left to do is when I get back to the office, since it looks like there were 3 separate events, we're going to go ahead and try and send out information in a public information statement to let folks know here are the 3 things that we found.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, you're welcome. Thank you all.